Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Victory Sunday. I'm Martino Puccio, alongside me, Matt Santangelo. And as you can see by the title, yet again, Christian Pulisic scoring, Milan winning, making a habit of it 2 matches in. Santangelo, fantastic game once again. And I know you're at your nephew's birthday party, but talk about what your overall thoughts were on this performance before we get into every detail.
Yeah, of course I was at the birthday party, but I still had the phone on me. I'm watching Paramount, the game, and yeah, this was a really good performance. I think aside from the quick concede after we scored the first goal from Pulisic, we went full throttle. We got 2 goals, comfy lead going into the break, and then obviously we get the fourth one, another penalty, which again, just wanted to make a quick little talking point here. Rafael Leão earned 2 penalties, gets an assist. I mean, it's a luxury when you can go 2 games, and Leão might not score a goal, but then you have like Giroud with 2, you have Pulisic, you have goals coming from everywhere, and these are things that we talked about, in the summer market when everything was going on. Like we need that support for him, and we're getting it 2 games in, so it's a nice win for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into his performance in a little bit, but just overall, this was a complete team performance. I don't think there's
Mhm.
anyone you could really point to in this one, as opposed to last week where some people were a little inconsistent. I thought everybody played very well. Even the substitutes, considering the situation where you're trying to kill off a game, you're not really trying to score as much when players are there. But man, I mean, just top to bottom. I was not surprised by this at all. This is something I called prior to the last episode. I had us 3-1. So unfortunate with the cash out because I was ready to get paid and the penalty happened.
I
And
saw that.
if you're new to sports betting, or if you care, don't care, you can't cash out a bet the second a penalty is being taken. So the same thing with a VAR check, because it's obvious you're like, oh my god, he's gonna score the penalty. I want to cash out this bet now. That's why they don't give you that. Captain America, what can you say, man? I mean, listen, wasn't that involved in this goal, but the run that he made was fantastic. I think this goal was all Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I mean, the change of speed and the pace to get past the defender, to send the ball across the middle where Torino had nobody to clear out the ball, and that ball basically just slowly drifted towards the middle. Pulisic
On
makes
a
that
flag.
incoming run, finishes with the left foot, scores his goal, and come on, baby, as Mauro Suma would say after that goal. You should I highly suggest you go and watch that. Just a quick note and fact that I tweeted out yesterday as well for this. At the screenshot for it, Pulisic already has more league goals than he did all of last year. As we know, that was a huge injury season. But the key factor here, and it's not to harp on him or take a shot at him, but that's the career high of Alexis Salamaker's in Serie A in his career. He's played 3 full seasons within the league. Well, he came in January one year, but the most he's ever scored in his singular Serie A campaign was 2. Pulisic has done it within 3 halves. Matt, again, we talk about the upgrades on the right flank. It's already equated to last year. Macias got 5 goals within Serie A. I know you also have to factor him in there, but again, Pulisic tying Salamaker's record within 3 halves of football. Your thoughts?
It's everything we wanted from the right wing position. Whether it be, but it just so happens to be an American doing it, which I know that was initially, something I was very skeptical of Milan fans. How can this guy do it for us? He's injury
Uh,
prone. He can't get into the Chelsea team. Like, what are we doing here? And that I think is a very important thing for a lot of these players that we brought in. Right, is getting good starts, because I think there was so much talk and so much hype about the market. Obviously, the initial angst with the Sandro Tonali sale. So I think it was very important for the newcomers to kind of hit the ground running, and we're seeing it, right? Like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I thought was he put in a really professional performance yesterday. I think that's really the best way to put it. And he seems already like that glue midfielder. You can see the experience he has and how that kind of translates to the rest of the team. It allows Tijani Reinders to do what he does. And, Reinders had a really good game as well. I think this guy is such an efficient passer. But I look at what Ruben Loftus-Cheek does as one of the more veteran presences in that midfield. Such a strong ball carrier, but the way he scans and reads the game, and even in that moment, that goal to Pulisic, I think a lot of players would actually shoot there because they think, okay, well, I don't have the space to square the ball to a player. but I think that's the harmony that maybe Giroud, Pulisic, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek are on when it comes to being in the final third, right? They kind of have this understanding of one another and where they're going to be, and you're starting to see that already. So, yeah, it was a great game for Ruben Loftus-Cheek. He seems like the real glue player for this midfield. And then obviously with Pulisic, what he's doing, 2 goals in two games. This is what we want heading into the Roma game. And then also, of course, after the international break, we have the big derby, which is his birthday. So if the stars align, man, this guy can be off to really one of the best starts for any new signing Milan have had in recent memory.
Yeah, I think since Teo, to be honest, like talk about a player plugging and playing. Same thing with Manyan, but Manyan, it's like a little different. But yeah, I mean, the RLC thing, perfect point on the shot attempt there that we all thought would happen. But that's the genius of that play, was just that fake and to just drive forward, send it across goal. And it was really funny because like a minute before that, I was like, can someone go far post? Because Rafa was sending in fantastic crosses as well, where no one was kind of at the end of it. Pulisic was arriving a little bit late, or whoever else was supposed to make that run. So it was a little frustrating, but the way Milan started was so great. Just that entire first half, but the man of the match, in my opinion, is him, and we'll get to the man in the match and who you picked. But for me, the Leão performance is what we're talking about. To me, just totally incredible as a player from top to bottom. Where again, if he's not scoring great, and great left-footed attempt, by the way, I think it just narrowly skied over the bar. Just to have that sort of confidence, even if it doesn't go on goal or to not, I think that's a step up. I think those are the small victories you take. But man, talk about it. Creating from the penalties, winning the penalties via foul, via cross of handball. To me, Matt, I think he's the best, and I'll say this specifically, best creative winger in the world. I don't think there's someone who makes more creative chances at this point. Strictly for a winger. There's plenty of other wingers that are better goal scorers, but man, the level of creativity that he had prior to this with no help up top, basically, in the attack. But now what he has, Matt, he had complete freedom. They had no idea how to handle him. He's being played one-on-one against a strong defensive side, by the way. And we'll talk about how about the attack of the low block and Ivan Juric's comments as well. I know there's just so much to discuss, but when a manager, and Juric honestly gives us more praise than you would think most of the time, but look at some of these comments that he had here. I don't know if you caught these or anybody else, but this is from Milan Matters on Twitter. Milan is clearly stronger than last year, and this is a team that gave us a bunch of fits, by the way. So this is coming from a place of someone who was doing very well against us. Yes. And it was fantastic at Verona as well. They lost 2 players and signed 6 very strong ones. I'm not sure the second player he was referencing.
Probably Ibrahimovic.
I guess it probably was just out of respect, and I get that. Abysmal difference between the two teams. Totally fair comments from him. And I know we're kind of just like saying that, but to me, it's sort of a manager immediately seeing this. You see the CBS Paramount studio also praising Milan almost immediately within the start of the season. Matt, 6 goals against 2 sides that were branded as one of the better defensive sides within the league last year. Milan have smashed them with the insane amount of chances. Again, Juric's comments, your thought on that. I mean, just the fact that someone is giving so much praise just 2 matches into the season, my man.
I think it's putting the praise onto what Milan are doing, what Pioli's doing with this team, and I think what makes it more, I guess, maybe where you're just kind of coming from as far as it being more impressive than maybe some of us led on to be, is how quickly a lot of these new players have assembled and have made an impact. I mean, the first 2 games we're seeing Pulisic, we're seeing Loftus-Cheek, we're seeing Reinders, we're seeing like some of their new players like immediately hit the ground running into a brand new league where it's not the easiest to adapt, and especially for attacking players where it's not the easiest to score. See CDK, see the slew of other players that have come into this league and have really made it a point to say this is the toughest league or one of the toughest leagues to actually score from a striker standpoint or a winger standpoint. So for Juric to sing the praises of this Milan team 2 matches in, it speaks volumes to how quickly things have kind of come together for Milan now. I think and we'll talk about this, in the build up to the game against Roma and then eventually the derby. But I think those two tests are going to tell us a lot more about maybe where Milan stand in that conversation as like, okay, it's 4 or 5 matches in. Are they like legitimate early contenders for the title? Like, do we think they have enough to be title contenders?
Yes.
And I know we kind of, you gave me one of those like cryptic, like, I'm thinking Scudetto after the game. And I'm
I'm
like,
feeling
pump the brakes,
yeah.
Puccio. But at the same time, in my head, I'm like, we got a little juice going on. Like, I feel good about this season. I really
It's
do
more of
so
an
far.
open league than people want to admit. It's
Yeah,
not
like
as
I think
strong as it was last year.
no, no, I think it's going to be pretty open, and it's just going to be a matter of whether or not Milan can handle some of these bogey sides. And so far they've done a pretty good job against Bologna and Torino, but we have the true test that I
Low
think they're
low
going to gauge.
blocked low block
Yeah,
teams though.
yeah,
There's two types of situations. It's
yeah,
kind of was they played very well against top sides last year, I thought, for the
yeah.
most
Of course,
part.
we've always been
They beat Inter, they were beating Napoli, they didn't lose to Juve, didn't lose
Lazio.
to Roma. I mean, the Lazio, they got smacked in one game, didn't lose to Atalanta, but that was really it. There were again, Inter only won 1-0 within that one Serie A match. I mean, everybody just likes to look at it because they were cup matches in the
Yeah,
Champions League. It seems worse, but Milan did put a beat down on Inter earlier in the season, and they barely finished above Milan within Serie A. So the Interisti want to talk all they want, and deservedly so. So they owned Milan last season, but let's not act like the gap was so significant, and now you lose multiple attackers. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, man, your man of the match. Actually, wait, you know what? Go to the subs real quick because the subs did come
yeah,
on.
yeah,
So here's one thing. I mentioned Bartezaghi is the starting. Well, not the starting. He's the backup left back by choice now. But I said, don't be worried. And Pioli also even said this. Don't be worried or shocked if you see other players take up that left back role. We've seen Kalulu play it. We've seen Florenzi play it since he's arrived as well. That's what we saw. It's a beatdown by Milan, and I think the choice to not give Bartezaghi minutes, I wasn't a big fan of it. Maybe I'm just selfish. I want to see the kid and see what he could do at this level. But also at the same time, Florenzi needs minutes.
yeah.
So you kind of have to get him warmed up there before the international break comes. Okafor came in, Chukwueze came in. It was the perfect storm to put on these players. Chukwueze, I was indifferent about his performance. I thought he did some good things, but I thought overall it was a chemistry issue with who needs to be where's the final
Yeah.
ball arriving, decision
They arrived a
making.
little later too in this. They arrived just not to cut you off, but these
Oh
players.
yeah, right.
We know they're good. We know they're of good quality. It's not a quality,
Yes.
discussion. I think it's more so that there's certain players that were brought in a little bit later, like Chukwueze he came in, but he probably had what, like 2 scrimmage or like friendly games at Milanello. Like,
It was Novara and then the garbage side. He's not starting. He's getting thrusted into.
yeah.
It's not
So
multiple games in America. It's totally different, as you said.
right. So I think there's certain players that they're going to need a little bit more time to jive and mesh. We've seen it with other players where they've hit the ground like Pulisic, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Like those were some of the early new signings for us. So it's only natural that they're kind of more acclimated. The chemistry's there. They know where players need to be. They know to receive the ball from Tijani. Everything seems like there's harmonizing play amongst those new players. But I think some of these other guys, like Chukwueze, Okafor, I think they're still trying to get sort of their feet wet, get the ball underneath their foot, see where players are supposed to be. And I think it's a luxury when you're in such advantageous positions that we've been in the first 2 games, where you can throw them on for 25 minutes and you're not asking him
Perfect.
to be like a game breaker and dictate the entire game, right? So yeah, I was okay with the subs. I think like you can split hairs and say you wanted to see Bartezaghi in a game like this, but I think ultimately, I think what Pioli's trying to do here is to see, like, okay, what do we got in Florenzi? Can he actually hold this job down? Because he came off a big injury last year, and now you're switching him over to a potentially like an emergency left back if Teo is not fit or suspended, and Bartezaghi, you feel like you don't trust him just yet. So I don't have a problem with it. Again, we've gotten so used to having very little depth that I think fans are being like, oh, why don't you play this guy? It's like, okay, you can throw a Florenzi in this game. You can throw players on for 20 minutes. You can give guys certain breathers. And I think, that's what we're starting to see early on in these 2 games. So take it, guys. Like, when we're in big positions of advantage and we're ahead and we can rest
Hmm.
guys, take advantage of it, because we know that the dog days of this season, we're going to see players go down. Players are going to get fatigued. And I just really, real quick, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned on Leão, right? The performance that he had. And I think it's interesting too, because as we just mentioned, right? Like he doesn't have to be the only guy doing stuff. And he said he had a great attempt with the left foot. He earned 2 penalties. He had the great weighted ball to Teo for the assist, and obviously, like the goal that Teo scored is going to garner all the praise and all like the buzz because it was a nice little chip of Anja Milinkovic-Savic. But I think, you know, in 2 games, we're starting to see the attention now kind of spread out onto other players where they can't really predict, okay, it's Leão, we guys got to cut down the left side. Milan have scored a couple of their goals through the right side, right? The first goal from in the Bologna game, Pulisic crosses the ball in, Tijani at the far post crosses it back to the face of goal. Then you obviously have the goal from Pulisic, right, in the first game. And then off the cheek down the right side. So like Milan and then now you have the link up between Teo and Leão. So now they have to be respective of the right side and what they're doing. So I think, you know, you're starting to see that Leão can have a game where he goes at players, he gets 1 or 2 assists, and people might say, oh, he hasn't scored any goals. This guy was at the heart of 3 goals. He earned 2 penalties and he had an assist. Like Leão can put up, I think Leão can put up his best goal assist output this year.
He's got a shot at 20. He's got a shot at 20 assists.
I really do think. I mean, he doesn't take the penalties, so that's obviously something that, you know, maybe could diminish his goal numbers. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, the performance that he had in this game specifically, I think it speaks volumes to like the relief that he's going to have from a pressure standpoint, and
he gets a break.
Yeah, and he gets a break. He doesn't have to do everything. He doesn't have to take on 2 to 3 guys and fire. He can say, okay, I know Loftus-Cheek, or I know there's going to be late runs in the box from Tijani or even Pulisic. I could just square something into the box, and I know someone's going to be there. I don't have to be the superhero on every occasion, and I think that's going to be so good for Rafael Leão.
Yeah, mentally as well, as I was pointing to my head with that. One guy we didn't get a chance to mention just yet, Yunus Musah debut for Milan. He was obviously suspended last week, so the U.S. men's national team, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Honestly, I've kind of low-key dreamt for days of like players that are playing on the national team for the U.S. Men's side and can come and contribute at such a massive club within Italy. We kind of saw McKennie do that loosely. There was Michael Bradley at times, but I mean, right now, what we saw with that run down 80 yards, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane by Yunus Musah. There he is right there. I tweeted out the video. We can't share anything. Otherwise, we'd get copyright strikes over here. My goodness, a 20-year-old carrying the ball like that within Serie A. Pass could have been a little bit better to Pulisic through the left side. More of a forward pass instead of a lateral one that he kind of sent. But if you've watched him, that's something that he still needs to improve on. Again, just 20 years of age. Great to see him get some minutes. Great to see his confidence centrally and try and do more. That's the scary thing. If Milan's up 4-1, bringing guys like Chukwueze, Noah Okafor, Pulisic, and again, the fascinating thing as well, Pulisic did not come off when Leão came off. They brought on Chukwueze. Chukwueze goes over to the right. Pulisic shows his versatility, goes to the left. Noah Okafor can go up top. And they all interchange and move around. And the fluidity reminds you of this season of when Bennacer and Milan were just playing so well, creating penalties, constant threats of what really made them take the next step as a club and a team to dethrone Inter for that title. So exciting. Again, he's going to have to take some time, Musah, in assimilating with the squad, like you were just saying, but just the flashes are there already, and you can't help but get excited over it.
I tweeted this out too. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, and pretty much kind of given my brief insight on what I think Musah is or can be as a player for this club and where I see his season going. And, you know, for him to get his debut at San Siro again, I think it's important for the new guys to get, you know, those opportunities off the bench where it's not so pressurized. I mean, he can come in, he gets 20 minutes, just runs, connects a couple passes, does a couple things to show you what he's capable of. And that run, I think, was the biggest takeaway from the match, right? And it's something it's funny because I included it in an article that I put out where if he's able to receive that ball centrally from Magnon, who likes to play those balls towards, you know, the center of the pitch and have those guys make those runs forward as carriers. And that's exactly what it is. If he's able to do that, you're able to play through the middle, beat the press, and he's got the legs, he's got the stamina, he's got the engine, the strength to make those charging runs that we saw Kessie make quite a bit at Milan. And I think it's
Yeah.
so important when you're able to just spray the ball around and you're having an outlet through the middle. And when you make those runs, I mean, that's going to open up so much on the counterattack for Milan when they're, when Magnon's getting the ball from a save, rolling it out or passing straight through the middle. And now you have guys like Pulisic, you have guys like Leão, Teo just making darting runs, and it's gonna open up so much for Milan from an attacking standpoint.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see Musa get a full 90. And again, I think it's a real big luxury. When you talked about the guys that we could bring off the bench and just the interchangeability throughout the match, that presents a different look. We've become so predictable over the past couple of years, and we've had glimpses of being unpredictable, but I think there's a real unpredictability with the way Milan play, and I think therefore it's going to make for a tough assignment for anyone. I think coming up into the Roma game and the Inter games, those are going to be the first two true tests, in my opinion, because those are teams that are in that conversation for top four. But I think ultimately the way we've seen some of these newcomers play, it's very exciting to see how quickly things and I'll say this, for all the slack that Pioli's gotten, towards the tail end of last year, not rotating, how he handled CDK, his selection at times in the Champions League, with Macias and Alexis, he's done a good job of getting these players ready to go and these guys meshing to get results like we've seen over the first two match days. So, I really don't have much criticism of the first two match days. This is exactly what Milan fans wanted to see. 2 wins on the trot, scoring goals, as I even mentioned in the preview for the Torino game. Like, I want to bludgeon a team. Like 4-1, like we were complete control command of this game, and that's exactly what we needed.
Yes.
In front of the San Siro crowd.
Yeah, and I also had one more statistic that I tweeted out
Yeah.
yesterday. Torino conceded only 4 more goals 4 times within Serie A last season. And on top of it, Milan scored 3 within one half. And that's really a side that didn't lose too many key defensive players as well. They've really kind of kept that same core together. Samuele Ricci, by the way, love him. Really nice little player. I believe he was at Empoli before this. He continues to make that rise as a player. I think that is definitely someone that's going to be on Milan's radar come next summer. That's just my opinion. I think there could be something involved with that. But again, yeah, I mean, listen, nothing else that you could say to go against Yunus Musah here. It's just to have all this slowly integrated in where there's a semi big match against Roma coming up this Friday. Hopefully we're having Wayne Gerard on, who's fantastic. Has a great YouTube channel, just hit over 1,000 subscribers. Go and check Wayne out. I think we've had him on here before, and if we haven't, I've been on his channel. He's a great guy. Yeah. Matt knows him well, even before I did. So Wayne is one of the good ones, not like some other Roma creators out there who are just, always there trying to poke the bear and just be obnoxious. Wayne is actually a really good guy. He's not one of the toxic creators out there. And again, I think you say more of a challenge with Roma. I say wake me up when international break is over, because that team's not finishing ahead of Fiorentina, because they're awful. And I told y'all, and I said it, and I don't know how many times I have to say it. And even if they get Lukaku, I don't want to hear any of this nonsense about like their content. Like, the manager's already complaining about how Renato Sanchez can't play in multiple games in a row, and it's just the start of the season. We already have Dybala coming off injured within one match. They're not playing well. They're conceding 4 goals against sides that were pretty abysmal last year. And the fact that Verona and I believe it was Salernitana were the ones to already get points against Roma, where Milan are, what was it? It was a draw and now a loss. Milan are 5 points ahead of Roma already to start the season. We're two matches in. Yeah, I mean, it's a must win. I know we go to the Olimpico. It's not as easy as some people would like to admit, because it's not. It's going to be a crazy, cagey match. But I'll just say this. If they're going to have as much trouble handle, and you're right in that sense, because you kind of want to see how Roma line up. How do they handle Rafael Leão? I'm curious to see as well, like you were mentioning, how do these top sides handle him? How do they adjust to him at this point? Because if they're going to, I think it's a mistake if you send to Leão at this point. I think you play Milan straight up if you're a team like this and you make them beat you, probably will come back to bite them in the behind. But I also think if you go into double Rafael Leão, you're going to get burned. So there's no real positive way. But then I guess we will get our answers at that point. So again, just want to mention, final note, We appreciate everybody that comes in to watch these videos. Sorry we couldn't go live this week. Please subscribe, like, comment your thoughts on this. Heading into the international break as well. Hopefully Milan pick up 3 out of 3 would be huge considering the schedule that we have, Matt. And again, beating sides like Torino and Bologna at any point within the season is key towards number 20, man. It's very legitimate at this point. We'll see what happens. Just 2 matches in, 6 goals scored, 1 conceded on a silly goal. Any final thoughts before we head on out here? Your man of the match, actually.
I would probably say Rafael Leão. I could have went a couple different ways here. I know people are highlighting how across the board, like everyone played pretty well for the most part. Some better than others, but yeah, I think Rafael Leão. Just for the, I think for the simple fact that again, you're involved directly in 3 goals, 2 penalties earned, 1 assist. All the dribbling, all the attention he garners, it opens up space for some of the other players to contribute in the final third. So I'm going to give it to Rafael Leão. It's going to be exciting to see once he starts adding in the goals too, with all the chance creation, all the successful dribbles he has, the assists he's going to pile up with Giroud and some of the others we have in this team. So Rafael Leão is the man of the match for me.
Agree. Yeah. There's no argument from me. We were basically saying it all video long. Yeah, Leão dominated. I thought everyone else put in a good shift. Wishing our boy Benacer could be here as well, because man, I had this
That's
guy
a luxury too. That's a luxury too, right? Like if these midfielders can settle in Krunic, I know we don't know what's going to happen with him. It looks like Pioli said he's going to stay.
Yeah.
Who knows? That could be just media, putting out the fire.
Could be, yeah. Leon's head scouts were there yesterday. I'm watching Sheffield United just equalize against City. So that's just an important note as well, because Sheffield United are a squad that are interested in Divock. So again, guys, just saying right now, I know this is pre-recorded. I don't know what the result of this game will be, but I will just tell you right now, if you had him, you would have beat Manchester City, and your odds of staying up in the Premier League would have been a lot higher, which would have meant more money, and you could have purchased him for 10 million euro. I am just saying you could have done that. Yeah, again, and the comments, by the way, as well with Pioli, I think those were actually very important that you brought up, that Krunic would be saying. He also did allude to, we don't know if anything else will arrive. We have to see how the rest of the market transpires. So basically, if Milan are able to get some of these sales over the line, there's rumors of Salamakers with Bologna, but nobody is offering an obligation or a permanent transfer at this moment in time. We'll see what the Origi transfers are. We're going to have better luck if Premier League clubs are involved, because they could pay upfront, or at least take on an obligation and handle those wages, because the bills in the Premier League TV money is absurd, as we know. Yeah, and then Nicolo Schira apparently said, this is via his Twitter, that Milan are still going to try and come back with an offer 15 plus bonuses for Taremi. We'll see what happens with that. That was the initial offer earlier in the window that was rejected. But like I was saying, windows wind on down. This is the ultimate question that you have to ask, Matt. You can answer it yourself, but and so could everybody else. But Porto's looking at it like this. They'd rather have Taremi for an entire season, potentially win a title and do well in the Champions League, than sell him for 15 plus bonuses, because they stand to make more money with Taremi than they wouldn't. Okay, so we'll see what happens with that. I think there is an opportunity of that. I say if they at least get Origi gone, or even Salamakers as well. You see Taremi come in, you see Colombo go to Monza.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the end of the window. Final thoughts on everything and anything?
No, I think that's spot on. I think, again, the point I wanted to just quickly wrap up on, because you mentioned Benacer. I think it would be a huge boost for this midfield that we have currently. With Pobega, Krunic, Loftus-Cheek, Musah, and Reinders to play extremely well, to hold it down, and then you can bring back Benacer without rush, and then you add Benacer to the midfield. I mean, now you're talking. We have some serious depth in this team in the midfield.
And it's gonna be proper rest. We'll see what happens within the Champions League. The draw is on Thursday, the 31st. So stay tuned for that. I might be going live for a reaction of that again. And you mentioned, I'm just bringing that up only because he comes back in February. If he does so, if Milan go kind of relatively late into the season, the opportunity to rotate and rest, as you mentioned, is paramount. No pun intended there as well, where you could watch all the matches in the US. But again, really strong 2 games from Milan. If they go 3 of 3, You're really having good vibes headed into the international break. And again, come back. Some of these younger players get integrated into the squad. Not too many important or major matches for guys like Pulisic and Musah. They're playing bottom of the barrel teams, the U.S. men's national team. So we'll see what happens. We have Copa America and Euros next summer. Matt, we had all your stuff underneath at Matt_Santangelo. Hopefully your Fanta Calcio team did well this weekend, and also all the stuff with AC Milan Bros as well. Your take with Alexis Salamakers just exceeded 100 likes on Instagram, so clap it up for you. But yes, be sure to check everything out. Go and check all the previous videos that we have. Go and check out some of Matt's work that he has. Written work is mostly what he's known for if you're new to the channel. So be sure to check all of that out. AC Milan Bros on Twitter, at Matt_Santangelo on Twitter, as I've had myself everywhere. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Anything else that you want to say before we head out?
No, we look forward to having Wayne on. We'll talk about the big Roma Milan match coming up. And yeah, as always, thank you for the support. And we hope to get the this podcast, or this nameless podcast, into audio form for you guys to enjoy on your mutes and all that stuff. I think the way we have this format down to like 25 to 30 minutes, I think is very digestible. It's very consumable. And that's kind of what we're hoping to bring to you guys this season. So thank you for the support. And yeah, as always, say thanks to Martino as well for making sure this show runs smoothly and the editing and all that stuff comes together.
Again, if I look down, I'm taking notes for clips, please. I got chastised by one person about it, and I'm like, Santangelo's known me for years. Like, he knows what I'm
talking about. I'm not going to sit here and say Martino's not looking at me, and then we're going to have this huge spat. Like, that's come on.
Beef. Yeah.
It's a two-man operation here. Come on.
I'm doing the best I can. We genuinely appreciate it. Again, Serie A's back. It's the most incredible league in the world. We truly love it. Again, like, subscribe, comment. U.S. men's national teams fans, if you have looked to go and find a channel or something, we're your spot. We're a group of a duo of American guys who closely watch the men's national team and obviously AC Milan. So you're not really going to get a better spot. And as you could tell by the stuff that we have everywhere, that we are not just bandwagon jabronis. Yeah, other way. There you go, left shoulder.
I was getting used to that.
Hey, you're good. Mirror mode. But yeah, we appreciate it. We're dragging on here. Take care, guys.